When we last sat here with Jackie, her story shook everyone.
The detectives told me that my son had been violently and repeatedly raped for a year.
It was raw, it was confronting, and it was real.
So West Cairns was highest ranked place for child-on-child sexual violence. My kid just got raped and you want me to sit down and act calm.
Since that day, there has been new moments. Moments that we need to talk about. Today, we're here again to listen.
I remember I couldn't even look at my son in the eyes. There's no more court. Charges were dropped. Sorry that happened to you. One of the things I said to the prosecutor was, you guys will probably end up with blood on your hands.
If your son watches this when he's older, what would you want him to hear from you? How have you been and how's the family been since we last spoke?
Well, a lot has definitely changed. Working in a school, which is great. My son, he's in high school now. This hasn't changed him. He's still just a genuinely brilliant human. Life's kind of good at the moment. My family and I, we don't, because his siblings are all older except for two. And so we keep the conversation about it to a minimum and sort of just between each other. He's managed to move on in life, and so we're trying to let him do that. So we just kind of are in the backgrounds and we just watch, because I mean, at the end of the day, this is a forever trauma, and unfortunately for most victims of sexual trauma, it sneaks up on them later on in life when they're usually at their happiest. I'll be there in the background forever, keeping an eye out, but hoping and praying with everything that I have that, you know, he's able to really move through.
What's the biggest change in your life over the last 2 years?
Got some negative comments, which is fine. I mean, nobody really knows everything except for me and, you know, us who lived it. So, I mean, people that have comments, why weren't you watching your kid, or what, you know, like, that's cool, but I don't let any of that faze me, because like, really? My child was sexually assaulted. Do you really think that that's going to, like, what people say are going to hurt me? No. That's the worst that could happen. Probably the biggest thing over the last 2 years would be there was a finalisation of the case, the court proceedings, and that was pretty disappointing, to say the absolute least.
What happened?
So at the end of last year, I had a video conference with the prosecutor. Long story short, she just said there's not really much point in going to trial at all, because it will get thrown out in 2 months because there's not enough evidence. It was my decision to whether to stop it or keep it going, and my decision wasn't based on any information that she said. My decision was based on the fact that I didn't feel like that she actually even wanted to go forward with it. He was assessed in Cleveland, and his IQ level apparently indicates that he's basically cognitively disabled and didn't know what he was doing was wrong. And I was like, okay. Also, the 2020 incident that he was charged with, that would not she they would not allow any of that to go as evidence in the boys' court case. There was also a comment made about it. It was pretty inhumane for him to be locked up as long as he already was, and I said, yeah, but 3 months of that was only what he did to the boys, and the rest of it all is property crime because he's been let out on bail. He's not following curfew, and he was still breaking into houses, still stealing cars, and so that's what most of the time of his incarcerations were because of that. Just a lot of things that you don't want to hear, like, oh, you should find comfort in the fact that you're able to control this now. You're able to say whether to go forward or to stop. Although the boys' evidence, their statements are compelling, it's not enough. She said they came out of it good. And yeah, it was a lot. I think she probably put her foot in it way too much. She probably should have just sort of stopped at a certain point. There's nothing on his file right now. Once he turns 18, it will all be wiped anyway. I think everybody, I did have so many people comment, and bless them, like, what about, the government's talking about adult crime, adult time, and, doesn't that fall in the time duration and whatnot? But no, it doesn't. And unfortunately for Queensland, the adult crime, adult time thing has many loopholes in it.
And how did your son take that?
I didn't tell him. It actually, once I found out, I sort of got into a really dark place for about 2 days, and I just kind of stayed in my room, and because I didn't want him to feel it. It's really hard. It's hard being a parent of a traumatized child. You don't know what to say. You don't know what's too much, what's not enough, or whatever. All I know is that I don't want him to feel like he wasn't worth the government saying, hey, that was wrong what this kid did, blah, blah, blah. But unfortunately, they were just pretty much concerned about him not being incarcerated for too long. I don't know when the day will come that I'll actually be able to tell my son, he indeed got away with it. My son he's been able to, he's got this life now, like, that I never thought would be possible at the beginning. So he's just the way he's living his life. I just don't want to hinder that ever.
So he's been really good.
Oh yeah. He's put on weight. He's outgoing. He's not shy and quiet. He's enjoying life, and he loves going fishing. He goes fishing with his mates all the time. They watch fishing videos and stuff. It's just, he's living his life, and I'm so happy to let him.
What was it like to see your story go out to the world?
It was wild. I mean, the exposure that it got and the views, and I got messages from random people, and then I'm reading their comments and everything, and it felt good to be heard. It's not a story that I'm, crazy proud of, but it made me, I guess, kind of glad that I did it, because if if I can help a child or a parent that's going through this, or unfortunately will go through this, sometimes reading books or going to counselling about how to handle these situations, and it's not usually the best advice. And sometimes you just need to be, you say and you feel things, and it's normal, like, just go through it. So that's basically the whole reasoning for the story, is to help, because I couldn't prevent what happened to my son. I've had some staff members at work, and they've been crying. Like, I've gotten to work and they're standing there waiting for me, and I'm like, okay. And then they'll come up and hug me and they'll go, oh my gosh, you're so strong and everything. And I'm like, no, I've been called strong and heroic and all this type of thing. And I'm like, no, this is what you should, like, you should definitely stick up for your kids. That should always just be a number one. You should stick up for your kids. And me doing the story was for that. As we've discussed, you don't get any help. So if you're an adult and you get raped, you will get help from the government. But if you're the parent of a child that has been sexually assaulted by another child, you don't get anything. You don't get any help. You get some counseling and that's about it. But other than that, you don't get relocated or anything like that. And I think doing this story is something that I can control and I can put out there. And it's the only way that I have been able to. So thank you. It means so much. And there's people that have known me for years and they didn't even know anything about it. And they're like, oh my gosh. And then I know I had a lot of people that were going, oh, it's not your story, it's your son's story. And, why aren't you talking about your son or whatever? And I'm thinking, did you want me to tell you about how it all happened? Or, I'm trying to put this out there because my son was not the only victim. Yeah, it definitely blew up a lot more than what I thought, but I'm really glad because I know that there's families out there and we can feel embarrassed and ashamed, especially being boy on boy. It's nothing that us as parents of the victims need to be ashamed of. Like, there's no amount of people that can come and say to me, oh, why weren't you watching him? Or how come you didn't know? And blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, it happened. My son was not the only victim, and there are possibly more. We don't know. There was the home invasion in Cairns. That poor woman. A lot of people asked me, I had the Cairns Post contact me. They wanted to know what my thoughts on it were. And then, of course, I did have some people that were trying to bait me, I guess, and say, oh, I think it was the same boy that raped your son. I didn't have anything to say on that. I found it just so crazy that the story came out and that happened. Just crossing the lines, and I thought, why? Why did this just happen? And it just made me feel like, hang on, this is a serial rapist, literally, the perpetrator of my son. And then this happened to a woman, and I mean, in no way, shape or form am I discounting anything that happened to her. I felt absolutely terrible. Why? Why is this happening? And then you've got this other perpetrator that's got like a handful of victims and they're boys, like so much damage is happening and yet nobody wants to hear it. And nobody wants to help the situation by, getting him charged properly or anything like that. That didn't happen. Whereas those boys, I think they got charged and they were talking about something about nearly 25 years. And I'm thinking, okay. So things like that sort of make it harder for me to want to bring myself to tell my son, oh, this, there's no more court. Charges were dropped. Sorry that happened to you.
How do you think your son would react if you told him?
I honestly don't know. He doesn't talk about it at all, actually. I think a lot of it's probably my fear. I don't want his self-esteem or anything to go down. I don't want his mind to have to go where mine goes and, into dark places. I'm old enough and mature enough to be able to close that door and go, no, we're not doing this. He has inattentive ADHD, so the emotions he feels are like tenfold. I don't know how he would take it, but I don't know when I will ever have the heart to actually say it. I do want him to know the truth, but just at his age at the moment, I think I just want to let him be great, which he is. I mean, I have a feeling when he gets sort of to adolescence, like up a bit more, that there may be a time where we're alone and he'll just bring it up or something, and then that will probably be the time, and hopefully by then I would have thought about it that many times that I have a really beautiful, soft way of telling him so as not to ruin who he is.
Do you think that he'll ever see what we've produced?
I think about that actually. He's come across it, but he's not even interested, to be honest. And that's fine. That's okay. There's some kids that have seen it and they're like, I saw you in a video, but they don't understand. They've said to him, oh, your mum was on a video. He's like, yeah, I know. He hasn't watched it. I do have people that say to me, well, you don't talk to him about it, but yet it's out there all over YouTube and Instagram and whatever. And I go, you know what? If he comes across it and he does watch it, if he's got something to say, my kids know, you come and say whatever you've got to say. We can talk it out, we can figure it out, or we can argue, or whatever you want to do. It's fine.
Did sharing your story help you in any way?
Being able to have an outlet, no one wants to hear it. Not one, but no solicitors, no media, no government departments. They don't want to touch it. The best thing was having an outlet and to be able to feel like my son, his story's going to be heard. I knew the court was going to let me down. Let my son down. I knew that was going to happen. So this is the next best thing. I had people in the comments and inboxing me and they're saying, tell me his name, like who's the family and all that sort of thing. I still haven't. That's not going to solve anything.
Since the case ended, has anyone from the justice system or support services followed up with you?
The prosecutor actually kind of cornered me in a way to end the case. She said it would probably be chucked out in a couple of months. Not enough evidence. He's got a low IQ. He's borderline retarded, apparently. So kind of putting it on me in a way to say, well, okay, what's the point then? I pulled out because I just thought my emotions were just, I knew what was coming. I already knew after that. That's it. That's absolutely it. You're talking about him having a low IQ and borderline retarded and IQ between 71 and 73 and all this type of thing. Like, you have somebody who can manipulate, threaten, all the knowledge to be able to, threaten and say, don't you dare tell them, blah, 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 and all this type of thing, and using force to do something and taking them somewhere, to do these things. That's, planned. It's not. So I don't understand how he just couldn't know what he's doing is wrong and all that sort of thing. And that's the scary thing. And I think one of the things I said to the prosecutor was, you guys will probably end up with blood on your hands. Well, I say things pretty raw, and I said, you're going to have a kid hanging from a tree in Murray Street, and it's going to be your fault because you didn't lock that dog up. Or, what's next? Because he's already pretty good at premeditation. If it's the thrill of raping, what happens when that wears off? We're going to end up strangling a kid while we're raping them and kill them or drown them in the creek, just things like that. And that's where I'm going with it, is that if this was an adult and was doing it to kids, everyone would be like, oh my gosh, we got to get him off the street. Well, this is a young fellow and he's probably in an absolute tornado of hormones at this age right now. So you can only imagine. I mean, I think about it a lot. There's no record to say, oh, well, don't go near him with your kids because, you know, he might do this. This is all going to get wiped clean. No one's going to be none the wiser. He's not exactly going to come out and say, oh, I've got a thing for boys or something, you know. That's where I'm coming from, because I know a lot of people are like, well, what do you want, like, out of this? And I'm like, I want him to be held accountable. I want there to be the laws maybe to look better at repeat offenders, especially on that aspect, is that what are we releasing? What are we, you know, I mean, what have we got running around with our kids?
What do you think needs to change for victims, especially young Indigenous victims in Northern Australia?
I would say the whole strategy of when you find a victim, it needs to be modified. Because now that I look back on it, and they took the detectives took my son into the room and they got the statement out of him and everything, and I wasn't present. I wasn't allowed to be present. He's in there with these strangers and they're kind of like hammering him with questions, I'm guessing. I felt like the perpetrator had so much more privacy, safety, and rights than what we did. You're a parent of a child and you're seeing your child and you're sort of trying to be there for them but not break at the same time, and it's all just so confusing. And as I said, the automated text message that we got from Victims Assist that said, oh, you can take your son to counselling at Chopper Medical Centre. Well, he was raped in the creek behind Chopper. So that proved to me that no one had actually read anything that had happened. So I think it really needs to be addressed that young victims, they're victims. They're not just little kids and they'll get over it and, you know, you just suck the statement out of them and then just tell them that they're a good boy or whatever and it's great. We need more help. Victims, yeah, like I said, I haven't told my son about the court, and that's something I have to do alone. And being in this position, you find yourself very alone, very, very alone. I've lost some friends because they're scared of what happened to my son. They're too embarrassed to be able to talk about it or anything like that. And I'm thinking, this didn't happen to you, so why? Yeah, just a lot of it is, it's just a really lonely place. Also, a lot of letdowns. That needs to change massively. And maybe then more victims may come forward instead of feeling, you know, kids talk. This is the thing. Kids talk. They talk to one another. One might say, oh, did you know this happened to me? And then my mum went to the cops and then nothing happened. And then so there's, you know, say 5 kids hear that and then the same thing happens to 2 of them. And then they talk to each other and they go, oh, well, remember what happened with so-and-so? Oh, we're just not going to say anything then. That happens more than you can ever imagine. And these are our kids. These are our generation, you know, that's going to apparently look after us and all the rest of it. What hope have they got if no one's giving them any?
What would you say to other parents who might be going through something like this, given that now that you've experienced this whole process?
A lot of it, it's really emotional. It's really hard. I remember I couldn't even look at my son in the eyes for a while, and it was not because I was ashamed. Our brains can only handle so much. And I'm thinking to myself, he's a child and he's obviously blocked out a lot, because that's what kids' brains do. They can't handle, once it reaches boiling point to a certain percent of trauma, it gets blocked. My advice to other parents would be, try and find out everything about what your child has gone through. Try and find out as much as you can, but don't take too much. Sometimes we can't handle it, and every day is one step at a time. And it is so normal to, I don't know how many times I say this to people, it's so normal to blame yourself, to sit there and sometimes think of ways that you're going to burn the perpetrator's house down, or these emotions that you feel, you need to feel a lot of them, but just make sure that you've got the level head, because you've got to remember it wasn't you, it was your child. The biggest message I would put, fight for your child, but just be 10,000% for your child. There's going to be conversations and situations that are going to be hard and you don't want to do it, but do it. Because if the system does let your child down, you've got to be that superstar. You've got to be the one that's standing there and say, I couldn't prevent this and I'm sorry that this happened, but I'm here now. That's probably the best thing you can do, is just to be solid, just be so solid and never stop fighting, no matter what, any department's laws or anything like that says. Make sure that your child sees you, stand up for them, make sure that they see you show up. Find a really good counsellor for your child. Don't just settle for one. In Cairns, we had a counsellor. It just didn't, her and my son didn't gel. You could see it. It was so apparent. When we moved here, we found one at the community centre, and she was amazing. And that really helped. And the day that she signed him off, really emotional for me, because I was going to miss her, but just so very grateful for her.
If your son watches this when he's older, what would you want him to hear from you?
That I love him with everything I have, and that I am sorry that I couldn't prevent it and that I didn't know it was happening. Everything that I say, everything I'm doing is for him. 100% always. And he might not matter to some people, but he matters with everything I have to me. And I'm crazy proud of just the amazing human that he is. And I'm so grateful and blessed that this didn't change him. He's a great person.
What do you hope people take away from this second chapter of your story?
The story itself isn't exactly a real positive, beautiful thing. And unfortunately, I'm not coming with great news that there's been a conviction and all of this sort of thing. Hopefully, out of this, I just hope people get out of it that this is happening. Us adults, we get caught up in our own lives and stuff like that. And, sometimes we can miss things that are going on or whatever, but we need to just be more vigilant with our kids. If you do have a child that's a victim, don't be embarrassed, don't be ashamed, and don't be scared. Our kids matter.